The sound of the ocean has a way of revealing secrets. It doesn't scream them, it whispers. That night, as the silver tide kissed the sand beneath the moonlight, I stood barefoot on the balcony of my beach condo, clutching a mug of black coffee that had already gone cold. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Once, twice, then a third time, unknown number, same message. You should check what your brother is doing with your condo. At first, I thought it was some scam or maybe a cruel prank. My brother Armin had always been charming, the kind of man who smiled as he borrowed your last dollar. But this time the warning felt heavier, like salt water on fresh wounds. I swiped the message away, but my heart didn't let it go. I had bought this condo 5 years ago when my life was falling apart. It was my sanctuary, the only place that carried no trace of my ex-husband's lies, my father's favoritism, or my own silent breakdowns. Every sunset here had stitched me back together piece by piece. I turned back toward the living room, my eyes scanning the framed photograph on the wall, me and Armin as kids, building sandcastles, unaware that one day those same sands would hold our secrets and betrayals. The next morning, I drove down to the real estate office listed in the message. The receptionist, a young woman with a hesitant smile, looked at me as if she'd seen a ghost. "Ms. Samira, we weren't expecting you so soon," she stammered. I froze, expecting me. She nodded nervously and handed me a glossy brochure. My condo, my living room, my kitchen, my balcony, all plastered across a sales pamphlet with a bold line printed beneath it. Luxury beach, front condo exclusive listing by Armin Khalid. I could hear my heartbeat in my ears. I asked, almost whispering, who signed this. "Mr. Khalid," she replied. "He said he had your authorization." I walked out of that office feeling like the sand beneath my feet had vanished. My brother had always been reckless, but this was betrayal wrapped in a smile. The drive back was a blur. I remembered the day I'd let him stay in that condo for a week after his latest failed business. I remembered the promises he made. "I'll never take advantage of you, Samira." He'd said it with those soft eyes, the same ones that used to beg for candy when we were kids. But this wasn't candy, this was my life. When I reached the condo, Armin was already there, wearing a crisp white shirt, barefoot on my deck like he owned the view. "Samira," he said, flashing his effortless grin. "Hey, I was gonna call you." "Were you?" I asked, trying to keep my voice from shaking. "Before or after you sold my home?" His grin faltered. "Okay. Let's not dramatize this." Dramatize. I spat out the word like poison. "You forged my signature." He raised his hands like a guilty man who still believed he could talk his way out. "Listen, I was just setting things up. You don't even live here full time. I figured you figured." I interrupted, my voice rising with the crashing waves. "You figured my silence meant ownership." For a moment I saw the truth in his eyes. This wasn't a misunderstanding, it was greed. Cold, quiet, calculated. Armin had always been the golden boy. He could set the house on fire and my father would say, "He's just young." When I worked double shifts to pay my way through college, he gambled away our family savings. And when my marriage shattered like glass, he laughed, saying I should have known better. I walked closer, each step making him uneasy. "Why, Armin?" His jaw tightened. "Because you've always had everything." My breath caught. "Everything? You're the one with the fancy degree, the good job, this condo, while I'm treated like a failure." His voice cracked with bitterness. "Do you know how it feels to always be second?" I stared at him, and for a brief second, I almost felt pity. But pity is a dangerous thing. It makes you forgive sins that should never be forgiven. "I built this life from nothing." I whispered. "You had everything handed to you and you still want more." His eyes hardened. "It's not like you'll even notice it's gone." I wanted to slap him. Instead, I turned away, breathing through the storm brewing in my chest. "You made a mistake, Armin," I said coldly, "and you're going to regret it." He laughed, a low, mocking sound. "You can't touch me, Samira. I already have a buyer." That's when I realized this wasn't just a betrayal. It was a war, and I wasn't going to lose. The buyer's name was written on the papers Armin left on the kitchen counter. Crown Shore Holdings. It sounded fancy. It also sounded dangerous. I spent the next 2 days piecing together the puzzle. Between sleepless nights and silent sunrises, I traced emails, property records, and legal files. The deeper I dug, the uglier it got. Armin wasn't just selling the condo. He had signed a preliminary ownership transfer to a corporate group that specialized in flipping beach-front properties into luxury resorts. And the cherry on top, he'd taken an advance payment, the condo I had cried in, the balcony where I'd relearned how to breathe after my divorce, the quiet place that had seen me at my weakest and strongest, was now a pawn in my brother's game. I went to confront him again, this time at my father's house. My father's old villa still smelled like bitter tea and disappointment. He greeted me at the door with that tired, stern look I knew too well. "You've made your point," my father said when I brought up the forged documents. "Armin's just trying to help." "Help?" I laughed bitterly. "By stealing my home." My father sighed, rubbing his temples. "He's your brother, Samira. Family comes first." There it was, that sentence. That cursed sentence that had excused every wrong Armin ever did. Family comes first. I repeated slowly, except when it's me. I walked out before my anger became tears. Later that night, as the sky poured rain like the ocean had followed me inland, I sat in my car outside the Crown Shore office. I had a plan, not just to stop the sale, but to make Armin realize who he was dealing with. I wasn't the fragile sister anymore. I entered the building in a soaked trench coat, head held high. The receptionist tried to stall me, but my voice was steel. "Tell Mr. Thompson I'm here regarding the Collard property." Mr. Thompson, a tall man with silver hair and sharper eyes, ushered me into his office. "Miss Collard," he greeted, smiling like a shark, or should I say, "Mrs. Owner, what exactly did Armin promise you?" I asked. "Full ownership," he replied, "and a good price. Your brother is ambitious." I leaned back. "There's just one problem. He doesn't own the condo." His smile faltered slightly, but he didn't look surprised. That told me everything. He knew. "Then you should talk to him," Thompson said smoothly. "Oh, I already did," I replied, "but maybe you should talk to your legal team, because forging a signature is fraud, and fraud can cost you more than just a condo." For the first time, he blinked. I pulled a folder from my bag. Inside official property deeds, legal ownership under my name, and a little extra detail most people didn't know. "You see, Mr. Thompson," I said softly, "I don't just own the condo. I own the entire resort complex. My condo is sitting on my land." His jaw clenched. "What?" "I inherited the land after the owner passed away 3 years ago. I kept it quiet, low profile, but now, if you go through with this deal, you're not buying a condo, you're buying a legal nightmare." Silence filled the room, thick and suffocating. "I'll give you one chance," I continued. "Back out quietly, or I'll make sure this ends in court." Mr. Thompson, a man who probably chewed smaller people for breakfast, leaned back and exhaled. "I'll speak with my board." "Do that," I said, standing. "And while you're at it, tell my brother the game's over." When I left the office, I felt a strange calm in my chest. The rain had stopped, but the real storm was about to begin. That night, Armin showed up at my door, rage in his eyes. "What the hell did you do?" he yelled. "I protected what's mine." "You ruined everything." "No, Armin," I said coldly. "You ruined us." He stared at me, breathing hard. "You always think you're smarter, better. You think owning this resort makes you powerful." I didn't flinch. "No, but it means you can't take it from me." He threw the papers on the floor and stormed out into the night, slamming the door so hard the walls shook. I picked up the papers and stared at them. His signature was still there. A reminder of what blood can do when it's tainted by greed. And for the first time in years, I wasn't afraid of him anymore. A week later, I woke up to find my condo vandalized. Broken glass, ripped cushions, paint splattered on the walls, and in the middle of the living room, scrawled in black spray paint, "You took everything." I didn't need a detective to tell me who had done it. Armin was unraveling. I spent the morning cleaning up the mess, refusing to call the police. This wasn't about legal battles anymore. This was about cutting the cord that had choked me my whole life. For years I had been the one who forgave, the one who kept quiet, the one who carried guilt that didn't belong to me. But now, watching the sun rise over the sea through shattered glass, I felt something burn inside me. Not anger, power. Later that day, I met with my lawyer and transferred the resort's management under a trust. My name only, no shared assets, no loopholes. I even filed a restraining order. The hardest part wasn't the legal battle. It was walking into my father's house one last time. He was sitting in the same chair, sipping the same bitter tea. Armin was pacing the room while died shouting about betrayal. When I stepped in, silence fell. "You've turned this family upside down," my father said bitterly. "No," I replied softly. "I just stopped being your punching bag." Armin sneered. "So what now? You'll kick me out of everything. You'll erase me." I looked him in the eyes. "No, Armin, you did that yourself." His face twisted with pain, anger mixed with the realization that he had finally lost control. I handed my father an envelope. Inside were the property papers, sealed away under my name. "This isn't revenge," I told him. "It's protection." My father stared at me as if seeing me for the first time. "You've changed." I had to. I whispered, "Because loving this family has cost me too much." When I walked out of that house, I didn't look back. Months passed. The resort thrived under my management. I hired new staff, restored the condo, and breathed life into the place again. Tourists filled the beach, laughter echoed down the shore, and the balcony no longer carried whispers of betrayal. One evening, as the sunset painted the ocean gold, I stood barefoot on the sand, the waves tickling my ankles. A woman who once broke quietly was now standing tall. Armin had disappeared from my life. Rumors said he left the country. I didn't care. I had stopped bleeding for people who never cared if I bled. The condo was no longer just a home. It was a symbol of survival. As the wind wrapped around me like an old friend, I whispered to the waves, "Never again." Because sometimes power isn't about revenge. It's about finally choosing yourself.